Welcome to the Connected Enterprise Podcast. This is Carl Lewis, your host from Vision33. And my guest today is Richard Duffy, a very good old friend, maybe not that old, from SMB Solutions. Richard, welcome to the podcast. And tell us about yourself and a little bit about SMB Solutions also.
Great, thanks, Carl. And some of you may find my voice or my face familiar. As Carl mentioned, my name is Richard Duffy. I am the founder and CEO of a company here in Australia called SMB Solutions Cloud Services, but many of you probably know me from my past life as the product evangelist for SAP Business One. I spent probably about 13 years working for SAP from 2003 to 2016. And in that time, I helped launch SAP Business One in Australia. Then I was responsible for the product in Asia Pacific. And then finally, I guess people say you rise to your level of incompetence. I joined the global management team of SAP Business One and was effectively the global product evangelist. And I spent a lot of time traveling the world, talking to SAP Business One partners, customers, and potential customers, as well as delivering training. And people might have seen me at maybe some of the ASUG Biz One conferences that I know that Carl, you and the team at Vision33 were instrumental in getting started and growing to the point that they were before we all hit the COVID-19 wall. And so many of you have probably also seen the videos that I have. And if you haven't, and you're having difficulty sleeping, then go and do a Google search for Richard Duffy and SAP Business One. You'll find hours and hours of endless entertainment of me talking about all things SAP Business One and how you can use it to become a better business. But certainly in the years since I left SAP, I spent a brief period of time working for another cloud ERP vendor, the company called Acumatica. Over there in the United States, my second stint at living in the US. I've lived in Minneapolis and Seattle now. So, and just for what it's worth, prior to working for SAP, I was actually a product manager for Microsoft for a product called Dynamics GP, which many of you might know as Great Plains. And I was a Great Plains partner for many years prior to that, back when I would go and say Great Plains and people would think it was a flight simulator. But anyway, since I left SAP and Acumatica and got back into the real world of not working for the vendor, I started a business where what we specialize in is hosting the SAP Business One solution in the cloud for customers. And we have customers right throughout Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia. Funnily enough, we've just started adding customers in Europe and some customers in Latin America as well, not necessarily because it was markets we were going after, but customers found us, heard about us, liked what we were doing, liked what we had to offer, and so things are going very, very well in that respect, because that's what we focus on. We just focus on the hosting of SAP Business One. Unlike your organization, Carl, Vision33, we don't sell Business One. We don't provide support for business. I mean, we support the partners, of course, and we know Business One intimately, but we don't support customers directly. Which is one of the reasons why so many different partners are very comfortable putting their customers with us, because they know that there's no conflict of interest there, but at the same time, they know that their customer and them are never going to be the proverbial meat in the sandwich where, the hosting partner says, well, no, it's nothing to do with us. It's not our platform. It must be your software. And you and the customer sitting there saying, yeah, but the software's fine. And so anyway, it's a balanced approach that seems to work.
It's good. So Richard, how has the adoption of, cloud deployment gone in your neck of the woods?
It's quite amazing when you think about some of the messaging you hear about SAP Business One. And sometimes you actually hear it from SAP as well. Unfortunately, from my perspective, oh no, SAP Business One is not a cloud solution. It's an on-premises solution, and if you want an SAP cloud solution, you have to buy product X or product Y. Well, I think the current statistics, even from SAP, are I think 70% of all new SAP Business One deployments, and there's a lot of those because the product's still growing in double digits every year, which is a good message, good news for those of you using SAP Business One. The product's not going anywhere. 70% of those new customers are actually being deployed in the cloud. And more customers are moving their deployments to the cloud. And there's a couple of very specific reasons for this. I can go into that, but I think, Carl, you had a specific question about the advantages for customers.
Well, yeah, in terms of, what are the advantages to a customer over being, having an on-premises deployment? What would you tell them? I know what I hear, but, what's the Richard Duffy story?
Well, the Richard Duffy story is actually based very much on what customers are telling me. So, every year customers, assuming they're not on a subscription license for their SAP Business One, but every year a customer pays an annual maintenance fee. And that entitles them to get the very latest versions of the software and the very latest technologies of SAP Business One. But you have to be up to date. You have to be up to date on your hardware. You have to be up to date on your operating systems. And your hardware has to be, for want of a better term, powerful enough to drive some of these new innovations, things like the new web client, things like the service layer, the API gateway, all of these things that make SAP Business One such a great digital core and allow it to be seamlessly connected with so many different products, either directly utilizing the SAP Business One service layer or through tools like what you guys have built there at Vision33, Saltbox, these integration tools. So people need to have that capability. They need to have that power of processing behind it. And, a lot of customers are just suddenly finding, hey, our hardware is just not going to cut it. It's too old. It's out of warranty. We're at that point in our refresh cycle where we need to move. So there's that consideration, which is a big one. So that's if you're an existing customer. Also, of course, COVID and the work from home movement drove a lot of that momentum, although we were already seeing a fairly significant shift to cloud before the pandemic hit. And we just saw that continue. Just people probably put their foot on the accelerator a little bit more and said, we were thinking about doing this next year, but we have to do it now. And the great thing about delivering Business One in a multi-tenant environment, I'll talk about what that is in a second. Great thing about Business One in a multi-tenant environment, it's very quick to spin a customer up. I mean, we just migrated a customer on Friday. They spoke to us, or their partners brought them to speak to us on Thursday. They made the decision during that meeting, yep, this is what we want to do. And it took us an hour on Friday afternoon to migrate them from SAP Business One 9.1 on-premises to SAP Business One version 10 Feature Pack 2202, which is the latest currently available version in the cloud. Now, I'm not saying that you as a potential customer should expect that every migration is going to take an hour, because of course it depends on the complexity. This customer, no add-ons to speak of, and relatively straightforward deployment that they had. So, it was very, very quick. So, customers are looking for that. They want that ability to move to the cloud quickly. So speed and agility is important. Then the third thing, I think, is a combination of, well, let's call it affordability. So as many of you will be aware, many of you as customers have got your SAP on a subscription model where you pay per user per month. At the end of every year, you renew your subscription. You can add users at any time during the year. And then at the end of the year, end of your contract period, if you like, you can reduce those numbers and what have you. So people like that flexibility. And then you pay for the same thing. You pay for access to the hardware, the access to the cloud hosting service certainly from our model, on a per user per month basis. and our customers love that. They particularly love the fact that, and we're a little bit different. So again, if you're contemplating cloud, you need to ask these questions because our model isn't the same as for everybody. We do a minimum of one user for a minimum of 1 month, and we don't ask people to sign contracts. So customers really love that flexibility. We've never lost a customer. We haven't had a customer come to us and say, well, yeah, we were with you for a month. It really stank and we want out. So we've never lost a customer, and we give customers a contract that they can sign if they want to. We don't enforce it, and they don't frankly want it either. So that flexibility is the other thing that makes it so important. So summarizing, access to the latest technology, the ability to be flexible in how they help their workforce be more effective, and affordability are probably the three key drivers, Carl.
Yeah, you talked about what I'll call end of life issues. A lot of customers don't upgrade their systems until their server is end of life, their operating system is end of life, and then it's, well, I guess we'll update the software also since we have to get a new server and a new operating system. Now, what's the change there, right? When you're in a cloud environment, and especially MTE, what happens?
Yeah. Okay. So, when you say MTE, that's like multi-tenant environment. So just quickly, for those of you who aren't aware of what multi-tenant environment is, so with cloud, you've usually got two deployment models. You can have one deployment model where you have your own set of cloud infrastructure, everything that you need from the database server through to the application servers that deliver the application, through to web servers and the servers that drive the service layer and the web client, and even in many respects, a domain controller that manages all of the user accounts and security. In a single tenant, you have all of that infrastructure and you have to pay for it. So you might need, let's say, four or five servers. You pay for all of it. In a multi-tenant environment, thanks to some technology that's been built by SAP called the Cloud Control Center, which we use in our scenario, what you can do is almost all of those servers can be accessed by multiple customers securely. So each customer has their own deployment, and it's secured and partitioned away from every other customer, but they have access to all of that power, all of that flexibility, and they're only paying for a share of that hardware. So that's one of the reasons why multi-tenant is so important, and so many customers are moving to that multi-tenant environment, and why they're doing that when they move away from that older style hardware. Again, the key driver of it is affordability and speed of deployment. As I said, we had another scenario. I won't mention the customer, but we had a customer about 3 weeks ago. We got this panicked call where they were running on SAP Business One, a version for HANA. Their server had crashed. They started running Business One in 2014. It was the same server they had then, and they were running on the same version of Business One. They'd been paying their maintenance every year, but had never done an upgrade, hadn't kept up with things. To make matters worse, they couldn't find their backups. Their backups were being stored on the server that crashed. Big no-no. We managed to find a backup for them. Luckily, at one stage, somebody came in and took a backup. So we were able to take that backup, get them up and running. That one took us 2 days because we actually had to, they were on 8.8 or version 9.0, I think. I can't remember now exactly. But we had to move them from one version, upgrade them to another version, upgrade them to another version before we could then take them to version 10. So message for everybody who's watching this, please stay up to date on your SAP Business One versions. Even more important these days for security reasons. So long answer, I think, to a short question. Hopefully I answered the question that you asked. So cloud deployment really helps in that respect, because certainly what we do from our multi-tenant environment, we upgrade our customers twice a year. So SAP's release schedule says that they'll release updates quarterly. I had a few hiccups with that over the last 12 months because they've been adapting to new security rules, again, because more customers are using SAP Business One in the cloud. But we deliver upgrades twice a year. and that happens automatically. And so, that's the other advantage, certainly in our model of the cloud deployment, is that you always stay current.
And would those upgrades include, things like server upgrades and operating system upgrades that are required by SAP's new version?
Yeah, all that's done. We actually do that as a matter of course for the sake of the exercise. Now, our model's a little bit different to what some partners do. Carl, I think in your multi-tenant environment, you utilize Amazon's AWS. We went down that path, but we made a different decision. We made the decision that we would purchase all of our own hardware and we deploy it in Equinix data centers. So actually the same data centers where Amazon and Microsoft have all of their servers, and even SAP with their Business by Design, their server farms are actually in the same data centers where we have our hardware. But we made the decision to buy our own hardware. Our most recent servers, for example, we bought for running multi-tenant HANA are actually all SAP S/4HANA certified. If you think what's an S/4HANA, that's the big daddy of SAP systems these days. So these are servers that are like the HANA server itself was $85,000, I think, just for that server. So one of the things that we do is we always make sure those servers are up to date. We have to make sure the operating systems are up to date. Windows, as you probably know, every month there's a thing called Patch Tuesday where Microsoft fix a bunch of things and from time to time break a bunch of things as well. A recent one in September, they actually broke a bunch of things if you're running SAP Business One and with remote desktop services. But I recently wrote a LinkedIn article on that one too, with the instructions on how to fix that. But
I saw that.
Yeah. And that's if you were running Windows Server 2019 and you were running Windows 10 or Windows 11, there's probably a 95% chance you were hit with that. But it's a very quick fix once you know what it is. But yeah, we take care of all of that. So we just say to a customer, okay, every month at the bare minimum on a Sunday morning, usually at about 3 a.m. when everybody else is asleep except for our team, we will then go and run all of those updates and make sure that the environment's secure. We spend probably $180,000 a year on security alone, which is a lot of money. And we have an integrated security model, including things like two-factor authentication. So for what it's worth, if there's an opportunity to get two-factor authentication with your deployments, make sure you're using it. Matter of fact, a lot of insurance companies nowadays won't even give you cybersecurity insurance unless you're doing two-factor authentication. So, you see it with Office 365 these days, Carl. They kind of insist that anyone who's an administrator has two-factor, but then the recommendations for everybody else is two-factor. So what's two-factor? It's something your password, something you have, usually a device, maybe a mobile phone. And so, when you sign in, you actually have to validate that you are who you are with the device. So very, very important, even in an on-premises deployment, to have that capability. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
we see that too. Richard, you've been an advocate for SAP Business One as long as I've known you. That's really how the two of us got to know each other, because we were both sort of doing that, and still
absolutely.
Are. You recently started a website for SAP Business One customers. Tell us about that.
One of the things that we found was that, the great thing about social media is that it's accessible, and there are so many different social media sites out there. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook, there's YouTube, and there are Business One related groups and sites on all of those social media platforms. Facebook, there's a big one. I used to actually be the moderator of a group on Facebook, not to enrage anybody, but I made a personal decision to move away from Facebook for political reasons. So I got away from that Facebook groups, but also I'm active on LinkedIn, of course. But what was happening was you would find, as well as being people who were contributing some good content, there was a lot of chaff. They talk about separating the wheat from the chaff. There was a lot of garbage, quite frankly. People would find that, here's a group that's got 10,000 members. what a great opportunity for me to come and start trying to talk to them about something absolutely unrelated and irrelevant, and or just try and shove sales messages down their throats. And I don't know about you, Carl, or you as a customer, if you're watching this, I hate that. I don't mind being sold to, but on my terms, when I choose to be, when it's appropriate for me. I don't want my feeds filled up with all that garbage. So you've probably figured out by my ability to talk underwater that I'm never short of something to say. And, I've got a fairly broad knowledge base. So a lot of things to talk about with SAP Business One. So I started this site, the SAP Business One community, www.sapbusinessoncommunity.com. I fund it. I've got some of my team who are working on curating and managing it. We build content every week. There are no sales messages. There is nobody on there trying to sell you something. There is nobody on there trying to convince you that they're the world's greatest consultant and that you should use them for consulting services. It's just basically a whole bunch of what I hope and what people tell me is useful information for customers and partners of SAP Business One. Right now, it's the world according to Richard Duffy because, again, I want to make sure that there's always regular content. But we just recently put out a call. Anybody who has got something of value to say to the Business One community that's not a sales message, that talks about how to make better use of their SAP Business One deployment, either through standard functionality or through maybe a complementary solution that they've discovered, more than welcome to contribute. And if you're not the world's greatest writer, don't worry. You can send us an outline of what you want to say, and we'll actually have our team write it up into a blog, and you then approve it, and then it gets published under your byline. So, great content comes from everywhere. So we're keen to have people contribute. And one other thing, I only speak English. And some people would say because I'm Australian, I don't even speak English. But that's a whole other story. But thanks to the marvels of Google Translate, we have been able to take that site and it's multilingual. So if, unlike me, you do habla español, it's available in Spanish, German, Italian, French, English, of course. And as we get more requests for different languages, we switch those on. There's a great thing in our platform that allows us, it basically takes everything that we write and it runs it through Google Translate and brings it up online. Sometimes it's not grammatically perfect, and I was talking to an Italian partner and they had a little bit of a laugh about some of the stuff, some of the translations, but it doesn't detract from the core message. Some languages just do not go through Google Translate at all. We tried, for example, doing Arabic because there's a lot of customers in the United Arab Emirates and in the Middle East who utilize SAP Business One. Just didn't work. So some we can't handle, but others, no issues at all. So take a look at it. And if you as a customer have got an interesting story, or as a partner, maybe you're watching this, or, the offer is there for you guys at Vision33. If you've got some content you'd like to contribute, just let us know. You send it to me, send it to Taylor Pretty, who is the site curator. She manages it. Little inside hit story. She's actually my daughter. We're a family business. Everybody that works in my business is a family member. So as the business grows, I'm now stuck because I run out of family and I'm 58, so I'm not breeding anymore. Just send us, get in contact, and we'd love to have you as a contributor to that.
That sounds great. One last question for you, Richard. Kind of looking forward, there are people that are talking. I'm sure you're hearing it in Australia too. We're either in a recession or on our way to recession, or what are things looking like, and what are you hearing in Australia?
Well, everybody loves a good doom scrolling story, don't they? It's funny. There's a television show that's on at the moment called The Good Fight, and the last episode that just aired this week, the character, one of the characters, part of her plan to achieve happiness was to stop doom scrolling, get off social media, get off the internet, just not look at the constant stream of stories about bad news. Look, I think it's fair to say that there are some economic headwinds. You'd have to be oblivious not to acknowledge that. But the amazing thing is that we're seeing, even with increasing inflation rates and governments doing things to try and tackle that, like increasing interest rates on home mortgages. And sorry, I'm a political junkie, so it's kind of scary, and an economics junkie. But anyway, even with all of those things, we are seeing that customers are incredibly bullish about their businesses. Businesses are continuing to grow. I mean, the classic scenario of that, it's so hard to find people, right? Because everyone's hiring because their businesses are growing. So yes, there's some tough economic conditions, and I don't minimize that at all. And I know there is a lot of people out there who are doing it tough. But from a business perspective, we're certainly seeing that businesses are getting not getting very active, are continuing to be very active. And many businesses are continuing to invest and to grow. And again, this is the reason why cloud is such it's a technology for the times, Carl, because it gives you that flexibility. Now, it would be nice if SAP's contracts were a little bit more flexible and you could move up and down, during your yearly contract. We allow customers to do that with our cloud, but SAP, you can only reduce the number of users you have at the renewal period. You can increase any time, but only decrease at your renewal period. But the flexibility of cloud makes it a great solution for businesses for want of a better term. I'll use the word uncertain times. I don't think it's uncertain times. People often say to me, Richard, well, what do you think? Questions like, is Business One here to stay? Is it a good investment? Should I keep doing this? Every cent of my savings, all of my retirement savings for myself and my wife and my children, because of course when I go, they get it. Every cent is all tied up in our SAP Business One hosting business. So we're all in on the business. We're all in on SAP Business One. So, so far, things are looking pretty strong. And most of the customers, if not all the customers I talk to, some of them are they got a bit of a, we're waiting to see, but we're not holding off on our investments. We're still making those investments now. Yeah. We're still moving forward. As a matter of fact, a lot of customers are saying, you know what, now is the time. If you, as my partner, like Vision33 or whoever your SAP Business One partner is, if you've got the resources available at the moment to do this project, let's get it done. So I would encourage customers, don't wait. Obviously, sometimes there's reasons why you have to, but don't put it off, because these projects are what's going to help you build that resilience. If things do get a little bit tougher, it's going to help you build that resilience. You're going to be able to take advantage of that technology and use the technology not just for its own sake, but to drive real business benefits. And that's the thing we're seeing as customers move to the cloud. They're now able to do stuff that they look at it and they go, we never thought we'd do something like this. We never thought we could do these kinds of things and have these technology projects, but moving to a multi-tenant environment in the cloud has made all that possible.
Well, on that bit of advice from Richard Duffy, keep moving forward. We'll say thank you, Richard, for the time today, and appreciate very much your participation in the podcast. Always good to reach all the way around the world and speak to somebody that we think of from time to time.
And it's good to talk to you from the future, because it's actually it's the day after. We're a day after you. So
exactly.
But I don't know what the sports results are for today. So again, you'll have to go back to the future for that one.
There you go. Well, thank you, Richard Duffy. Thank you, my friend. Take care.
Thanks.